Welcome again to Earlswood Baptist Church House Group Online. This week we're looking at the second half of Mark chapter 7, where there are two interesting passages. First, the interplay between Jesus and a Gentile woman and a healing there, and then a rather unusual method of healing, which I'm not sure I'd recommend. So our reading is Mark chapter 7, verses 24 to 37.
Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he couldn't keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. "First let the children eat all they want," he told her, "for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Lord," she replied, "even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he told her, "For such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter." She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spat and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, "Ephphatha," which means "be opened." At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosed, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. "He has done everything well," they said. "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak."
Well, as we come to look at this interaction between Jesus and the Gentile lady, we might ask ourselves why Jesus was actually staying in Tyre. It was a bit out of the way and a thoroughly Gentile area. And perhaps he was merely just lying low for a bit to recuperate and get away from the crowds, and also get away from the scribes and the Pharisees who were beginning to oppose him so much. But being Jesus, of course, there's always something going on around him, isn't there? When we read this through initially, he really is being quite rude to the Gentile woman. After all, the Jews did consider the Gentiles to be worse than dogs, which is hence his reference to her. But there again, the Gentiles were equally rude about the Jews. There was no love lost between them. We might, of course, take one of the many readings of this passage and take the feminist view, where Jesus was very bigoted about Gentiles, and the heroine of the story was the Gentile woman who put this misguided Jew on the right track by telling him that Gentiles weren't so bad after all. I think that is a total misreading of things, isn't it? But it shows how far-fetched you can make the Bible if you want it to be. If you read this, though, as sort of playful banter between them, there's a degree of respect and a degree of cheek. It makes a lot better sense, doesn't it? The woman may be desperate to have her child healed, but it doesn't mean she can't engage in the conversation with Jesus and banter with him. So what is Jesus actually saying here? I think he's saying first that his ministry is actually to the Jews, first and foremost. Something that, of course, Paul repeats and we looked at the other day when we were looking at Romans. He comes first as a Jewish Messiah, and then he'll be rejected and die on the cross. But he won't turn away a Gentile with faith. All through the Gospels, here and there, Gentiles turn up and are commended for their faith. And if we look back at verses 17 to 23, perhaps Mark has put these stories together to put the point over that Jesus is redefining clean and unclean, about what goes into people and coming out of people, and redefining Jew and Gentile, because there will be a time when the good news is for all people and not just the Jewish nation. Then we come on to this rather unusual healing. I'm not sure whether today it will get past health and safety, will it? If you spit on people before you heal them. But of course we're reminded once again that in the scriptures there is no real formula for healing people. Jesus did it loads of different ways, and perhaps we should be open to God working in all sorts of ways as we minister to people. And once again we have this sort of Markian silence. Why did Jesus tell people not to tell others about the healing? Surely there was little chance of that, as indeed turned out to be the case. Once again, perhaps he was aware of the strong opposition around, and he wanted more time to spread the good news of the kingdom to the Jewish people and hope that some would accept him as Messiah. And there again was, of course, he moving towards the cross in his own time. He would tell the world about what was happening in the kingdom in his own time, not for the people around him. So what do we make of today's reading? Perhaps I picked out of this, there's a real sense of timing in one's ministry, isn't it? Sometimes we might be called to concentrate on just one person or one group of people, but yet we're always called to have time for a person with faith, someone who's open to hear the gospel. We should always have time for them. And I love this phrase at the end, he has done everything well. And it just occurred to me, wouldn't it be wonderful if Jesus could say that about, or for me, and indeed for all of us? I just love to hear that, and maybe I wish I could hear it more. Well, thank you for joining us at Online House Group this week. Next week we'll be in church, and then I think we have a couple of weeks off for Easter holidays.